Hello, my name is Dan Deutsch, and this is my presentation on sustainable transportation for the class Tools and Techniques. The roadmap to reducing greenhouse gases won't be easy, but there are several strategies municipalities can utilize for sustainable transportation, including idle reduction, active transportation, public transportation, transportation demand management, and policy reform. Policy reform can actually address all the strategies I just listed. And the first strategy is idle reduction. The two primary categories of light-duty vehicle idle reduction strategies are behavior and technologies. Behaviors include turning the engine off when you're parked and turning your car on and off manually instead of a remote starter. Different technologies include auxiliary power systems, like police cars utilizing auxiliary power systems like for heating, cooling, and charging their electronic devices that are battery powered and charged by the engine while being driven, and waste heat recovery systems. Basically, these use engine heat that would otherwise dissipate through the heat transfer system. And the police car example is actually very relevant because that's the case study I looked at for this presentation. So from 2018 to 2019, the Burlington, Vermont Police Department equipped 9 of their emergency management patrol vehicles with the Idle Right Fuel Management System. And that monitors vehicle battery levels to indicate necessary idling time since these vehicles require such long periods of flashing emergency lights. The Vermont Clean Cities Coalition worked with the police department to first educate them on a pilot that costs only $500 to install, saving 345 gallons of fuel and decreasing operating costs by over $800 per year, reducing wear and tear. Not only that, but the installation helped the image of the police department as they had been getting complaints about the emissions due to idling time. And also, the assistant fire chief added a device to their vehicle following the device's success with the police department. The next strategy I'm taking a look at is active transportation. Simply put, active transportation is human-powered mobility. While mostly behavior choice requiring personal and individual changes in your lifestyle, cities and towns can still invest in infrastructure that will encourage active transportation, therefore reducing vehicle miles traveled and ultimately helping to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Whether it's a dedicated bike lane or shortened paths between destinations to increase walking, active transportation can not only help in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, but also it can help increase a community's overall quality of life. Like in a 2010 study linking walking and cycling to public health, researchers found that at the city, state, and international levels, there were positive health benefits associated with active transportation. According to the study, entitled Walking and Cycling to Health, a comparative analysis of city, state, and international data, the countries with higher levels of walking and cycling among the 14 in the study tended to be associated with lower levels of adult obesity. Within the United States, the researchers concluded that, quote, higher rates of walking and cycling to work were associated with 1, a higher percentage of adults who achieved recommended levels of physical activity, 2, a lower percentage of adults with obesity, and 3, a lower percentage of adults with diabetes. The next strategy I'm taking a look at is public transportation. So simply put, public transportation is an increasingly effective measure for providing an alternative to single vehicle use. Different types of public transportation include buses, trains, and airplanes. So the case study I looked at was the MBTA, and they oversee 5 major public transit initiatives: their commuter rail, the T, bus lines, their ferry, and a paratransit program that I just learned about called the Ride. So as of January 2021, according to their website, 100% of their fleet was electrified, but they do have several other programs related to sustainability and resiliency. So while fleet electrification is their primary way of reducing greenhouse gas emissions, they also develop sustainable design standards, they invest in renewable energy, they utilize sustainable building practices, they try to protect natural resources whenever they can, they practice sustainable waste management initiatives, they issue sustainability bonds to finance projects related to resiliency, and they maintain vegetation along transit routes to ensure vehicle efficiency. The next strategy that I'll be taking a look at is transportation demand management. And while it's less of one strategy or one behavior or technology, it's more of a holistic look at sustainable transportation. Rather than a strategy or design element, it's more of a type of programming at understanding people's underlying values towards sustainable transportation. So, transportation demand management focuses on understanding how people make their transportation decisions and influencing people's behavior to use existing infrastructure in more efficient ways. This quote was found on the Mobility Lab, which is part of Arlington County, what I'll go into in a second. And they reduce single occupancy vehicle trips and getting people to use transit, ride sharing, walking, biking, and telework. So that whole quote is cited at the end of my presentation. Like I said before, the Mobility Lab, an initiative of the Arlington County Commuter Services, outlines effective transportation demand management implementation as the following. What content are you drafting and delivering potential public transit users? This is about getting local businesses on board with programming that can help in presenting sort of a united front. So once other area employers see the success of these programs, they may join on the initiative as well. These are mutually reinforcing services like transit, ride sharing, and transit stores. There are incentives for employees, employers, and community members. Ordinances and conditions that are directly related to land use and development. And finally, trip caps or maximum average vehicle occupancy, which can really be good enforcers. Essentially, transportation demand management, or TDM, includes almost everything within the scope of this video and more. So lastly, policy reform. On the national level, one of the biggest funding initiatives dedicated to investing in emission reduction came from the Inflation Reduction Act. In fact, $1 million of those dollars are going to UMass Amherst via the Climate Pollution Reduction Grant Program to help the South Central Regional Council of Governments in New Haven County, Connecticut, create what's called a Priority Climate Action Plan. So policy reform like this and others can come in many forms, but for this video, I will narrow down to the scope of parking and smart growth. While parking may not have as a direct effect on emission reductions as other strategies discussed in this video, it does in fact play an important role in mitigation. Every year, an estimated 30% of fuel is wasted while we look for parking, or 18.6 billion pounds of carbon emissions. So in Los Angeles, they have over 1 parking space per person, actually 1.5 parking spaces per person, thanks to transportation planning and lobbying over the past several decades. And the parking minimums are driven by the belief that because driving is a predominant and preferred method of transportation in any given location, there must be a place to park at every single destination. However, there is reason for hope. Thousands of miles across the world in Delhi, India, the Delhi Maintenance and Management of Parking Places policy aims to make streets, quote, safer, more accessible, and more sustainable. And that's from a institute that is cited at the end of my presentation. In one specific example, a 2022 plan calls for more parking management around rail stations to promote ridership. And across our border in North America, Mexico City implemented parking maximums to replace the pre-existing parking minimums to reduce car use. Another way they're getting rid of the need for parking is by addressing the need for more housing. And I quote, "With recent reforms, real estate developers have the opportunity to design developments that utilize space for more housing or commercial purposes rather than car storage." And my final strategy in smart growth, although it's not directly related to reducing greenhouse gas emissions or even just transportation in general, smart growth policy reform is a holistic view of economic community development with an end goal of curbing urban sprawl and lessening environmental degradation. Smart Growth America names 10 principles defined by the EPA that provide the foundation for a smart growth approach, and they're listed here, like compact design, mixed housing, walkable neighborhoods, general walkability. But, this is in Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm curious to see how much of those apply in this specific picture. MetroCom in 2050 is the long-range regional plan for Greater Boston developed by the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, or MAPC. By addressing land use and policy in broad strokes through the comprehensive community engagement, MAPC offers their 101 municipalities recommendations, research tools, and other resources with the collective goal of smart growth for the entire region. Their 5 main action areas are climate change, dynamic and representative government, equity of wealth and health, homes for everyone, and inclusive growth and mobility. Under climate change, MAPC's region for 2050 includes net zero emissions, equitably distributed public health benefits, and a new energy economy. Their vision for transportation under inclusive growth and mobility is more specific, and I quote, "New transportation technologies and services operate on our roads, underground, and on the water. These new travel options can alleviate congestion and pollution rather than adding to it. Public transit and shared trips are often more convenient and affordable than solo trips. Auto congestion still exists, but it is predictable and avoidable." So, like transportation demand management, smart growth takes a holistic approach to planning. One of its downsides is it's very visionary, it's very lofty, like much of regional planning, is that it feels more and doesn't feel very actionable. So while this broad outlook can be quite useful, regions and states actually they may have a lot of conflicting interests, and these interests may give them a hard time in reaching some of these goals. So in conclusion, what does that mean for cities wanting to adapt sustainable transportation? It means that there are a lot of places to start, some more scalable than others. And some of these locations, towns, municipalities, they may not be able to afford something like an idle reduction technology, making it more sense for them to adopt regional outlook and collaborate with other municipalities in their region. The moral of the story is that there is no one-size-fits-all strategy for sustainable transportation, but most places should be able to find their way.